nearly 16. The hour was 11 in the evening, and the shop no longer shook with the rumble of the trains on the Kings County Elevated Railroad that ran above Fulton Street. Molly was not feeling her usual happy-go-lucky self. Jimmy Heimlich, whose father owned the greengrocer's 2 doors away, had asked her to walk out with him, but she had refused, and her mother had been very angry. Jimmy was a well-set-up young man, and Mrs. Maguire had looked forward to a merging of the 2 businesses. Jimmy's father was failing, everyone knew that. It was only a matter of time, but her infuriating daughter had said no and had refused to give a reason. Molly could not really work out in her mind why she had refused Jimmy. At last, she had said slowly that it was because she was not in love with Jimmy, and her angry mother had confiscated her small store of romances, saying she could not have her books back until she came to her senses. The theatre crowd from Colonel William F. Sims Park Theatre had cheered the Spooner Stock Company to the last curtain call and had gone home without any of them calling in at the Maguire store. It looked as if it were going to be a quiet night. Mary was asleep under the counter because she had school in the morning. Molly, who had finished school, had elected to stay awake. But her eyes felt heavy, and she leaned her elbows on the counter, enduring the familiar feeling of fatigue and sore feet. Her eyelids drooped lower and lower, and the temptation to crawl under the counter beside Mary was nearly irresistible. The sudden clanging of the doorbell brought her eyes open with a jerk, and then she blinked. For surely the lady standing on the threshold must have come from one of her dreams. Despite the close humidity of the night, she was dressed from head to foot in white ermine. She had a thin, white, autocratic face with weak, pale eyes. On her scarlet hair was perched a sequined cap ornamented with long black cock's feathers that hung down to her shoulder. She raised a hand to her forehead, and her furred cuff fell back to reveal a heavy diamond bracelet circling a wrist so fragile and thin that you would have thought it would have snapped under the weight of the jewels. Behind her stood a tall, elderly gentleman with a white moustache and a florid face. Little beads of moisture clung to his tall silk hat and to the fur collar of his coat. And behind the couple, a huge Lozier automobile crouched beside the curb, with a uniformed chauffeur standing at attention. It must be a dream. But the lady was moving forward languidly to the counter. She opened her thin, painted mouth and said, "Have yous got anything for dis cough? It's a-making me sick to my stomach, ain't it, Joey?"
"Yes,"
said the elderly gentleman vaguely, and then, "What's that?" That was Mary's round eyes peering over the counter. Mary got to her feet and smoothed out the creases on her starched pinafore, and both Maguire sisters stared at their customers in awe.
"Come along, gals,"
said the gentleman called Joey.
"May Dolores has got the cough something awful, she has."
And in answer Dolores let out a series of stentorian barks.
"There you are,"
said Joey triumphantly. The gentleman appeared to be English, to judge from the strangulated accents coming from him, but his fair lady had undoubtedly sprung from Brooklyn soil. Molly looked feverishly around the shop. No cough medicine. She stood irresolute. She did not want to send these grand customers away empty-handed. Then Molly remembered her grandmother's old receipt book in the back shop. Surely there would be something in that.
"We had just the thing if you will wait a few minutes,"
said Molly, nipping deftly around the counter and placing a chair for Dolores next to the shelves of canned goods. And hustling the wide-eyed Mary in front of her, she bustled into the back shop.
"What are you doing?"
demanded Mary.
"We ain't got no cough syrup."
"Haven't got any," corrected Molly automatically. "But there's bound to be something in Gran's book. Here it is. Now let me see. Cough, cough, cough. Huh. Got it. Find an empty bottle, Mary, and draw a label. You're good at that."